Well, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're not as tired as I am. So this session, we're going to do basically two, what I call power level tricks in Starry Night that can be extremely effective in presenting all kinds of interesting and creative astronomical ideas. So to demonstrate that, I'm going to attempt to share a screen. I think I'd be getting good at this, but who knows? So you should be seeing my RenderBox screen. I'm actually going to run part of a show that many of you may actually use as a demonstration of multiple paths. This is the path of the sun, the summer solstice at Eastern University, which, as you know from the Full Dome curriculum, is actually the center of the universe. That pan keeps coming up all the time. And so that's nice. That's a trail of suns, that's Stucky. But then, of course, what I wanted to do was to compare the solstice path to the equinox path, which rises due east and sets due west. But I wanted to keep the solstice path up. And then I wanted to compare both of those to this winter solstice path. So if you've ever tried to do this on your own, you might have found out immediately that, gee, I can make one of these, but then when I go to the other one, it erases everything, and then I scream and cry, and what do I do? And so this is what we're going to learn today, is the reset, how to reset, how not to reset, etc. Let me show you another example of how keeping a scene can actually be kind of cool. And that's with the retrograde of Mars show, which is, if you ever want to teach anybody about retrogrades of Mars, this show teaches you everything you'll ever want to know. This never even gets taught in graduate school. I dare say very few astronomers could explain what I'm about to show you. So we all know why Mars goes retrograde. I won't insult your intelligence. But Mars has basically, I'm going to show you 5 different retrograde paths. This is what we call the bottom loop, which Mars did in 1971, during that opposition. Opposition always takes place dead center in the retrograde path. But what I wanted to do is to compare that loop in 1971 to other retrograde loops. And so I basically told it, don't reset, but go to a different date. Keep that path up so we can compare it to this path. And if you look carefully, you'll see that this path is quite different from the 1971 path in that it has a top loop, not a bottom loop. And so you need to ask your students, okay, what's the story with this? What's the bottom loop? What's the top loop? But that's not all. There are other shapes too. In 1991, Mars decided to make the mark of Zorro. Except it was drunk. And so you've got this kind of squished Z shape, with again opposition taking place halfway in between. But sometimes Mars draws a nice symmetrical Zorro mark. So obviously he's not having tipsy problems now. So you can see that that Z is not nearly as squished as this one. And then finally, not to be outdone, sometimes Mars draws an S instead of a Z. And so the question becomes, when you actually see these different paths that it can make, you have to explain them, what's going on. But I dare say, I'm not sure anybody had ever drawn 5 retrograde loops in the same sky to be able to compare them. before this, because most people don't even know how to explain this. I won't go through how to explain it. This is when Mars is below the ecliptic, above the ecliptic, and this is when it crosses the ecliptic during these retrograde paths. So here it's below the ecliptic, above. For this shape, it's going up and it's crossing the ecliptic, so from south to north. And then the S shape, it's going from north to south. That's the shorthand explanation. The asymmetrical is because Mars's orbit is eccentric. It's going at different speeds, so it depends on when we encounter it at opposition as to how asymmetrical the retrograde loop is going to be. But again, these were drawn in such a way so that the path, Starry Night did not erase the path. It kept that up there so you could compare other paths. So let me show you a different screen. My pre-flight screen. Get that out of the way. Became big. I'm assuming everybody can see my pre-flight screen. I'm going to go first up to the seasons class in the favorites to show you this column, which you usually see a check mark here. You'll see that the pop-up box tells you that this is the reset scene box, radio button. This was a relatively new feature just placed in there, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, because the only way to reset a scene before this was to go into the favorite file and manually add lines, which I am going to show you how to do. But this is a nicer way to do it. If you take a look at the season shows, these are the 3 that I just ran: summer solstice, the autumnal equinox, and the winter solstice at Eastern, 40 degrees north. You notice that the screen reset is set for the first one, but for the other 2, it's not. I'm not going to check this, but if I were to check this box, this would set a scene reset, and then if I ran it, this one would be erased when this one comes on. Does that make sense? That is almost 99% of the time you want your scene to erase everything before it. But of course, there are going to be times when you don't want it to do so. And so this is the quick way, without editing the HTML file, to make a scene not reset and just overlay on the previous scene. Yes, are we happy with that? Okay, let me show you what this is supposed to be doing, because I don't trust anything. So I'm going to open up a favorite file. Let me open up. This is the June 21st favorite file. And you can see all the fun HTML lines in here. So you should memorize those. And if we do a search in this file for reset, you bump into Shadow Cone's reset. Yeah, that's fine. We don't care about him. And then I say find next. You'll notice that it doesn't go anywhere. And the little message says, dude, there's only one. Get your act together. So what does that mean? It means that the June 21st file, without anything in here saying reset, it defaults to reset. In other words, if I go back to the favorite, see how that's checked? That file is going to reset the scene. Even though it doesn't say to do it in HTML, if there's no command in there, it defaults to resetting the scene. Is that clear? Hopefully. Okay. Now, let's go into this file and see what the difference is. So we'll go into the autumnal equinox file, HTML file, the favorite file. So that's this guy. And let me just go back to the top of the file to make sure I don't miss any. There's my silly shadow cone. But look, it found a different one this time. This line. paths reset all? No. No. That means no. No means no. Do not reset the paths. That line wasn't even in the other file, right? That didn't even exist in the other file. But hitting that reset box, it's supposed to have written that in there. And a second line, what? Aha. Scene reset. Value is no. Don't reset the scene. Don't reset the paths. That's right. Do not pass go, Kelly. You're exactly right. Okay. Now, if you want to, you could change these to yes. Okay. And then the scene would reset. So to answer Chris's question, the answer to that, I believe, is yes. If the box is unchecked, these lines are put in there and no is put in there. If the box is unchecked, it says no. If it's checked, it says yes. Okay? That's technically, theoretically correct. I will not base my life on them. Okay? So if you want a scene to not reset, click on the button, make the check mark go away, and it won't reset. If that doesn't work, and Preview Suite always works, then go into the actual favorite file and add that line and the previous one to it that says paths reset. This one. Okay? This is all explained in my notes in detail, so you don't have to write this down. It's in the handout that talks about adding multiple paths. This is extremely useful. All kinds of cool stuff. If you want to show the moon's different paths, as I do in the Lincoln trial show, that's how this is done. I show the moon's path in forget what it is. I think it's the summertime and then the winter time, and it's a difference of 8 hours in the sky from a matter of 6 months, and it's always cool to show that. Are there any questions about this? Do we have any questions?
Are these currently in like the most recent of Starry Night, or will they be in the next update?
Which, dear? What is what in there?
This button to reset the scene or not?
Those buttons are in your Starry Night now. They're in your side dome now. They're in your Preview Suite now. This feature has been in there for at least 5 years, if not longer. So yes, it is there now. Okay.
Great. I will just unhide it.
Yeah, exactly. You have to go up here and put it in there, right? Yeah. But again, if you uncheck it and it's scene resets on you, it might be missing either path reset or scene reset in the favorite. I think it's supposed to put both in. I wouldn't stake my life on it. I could test it. Do you want me to test it? Yeah, thanks very much. All right, I'm going to test it. We saw that in the September 21st, yes, this file, Emma has me on the spot here. Path resets, no, yes? Path resets are no. I'm going to regret doing this. I can just my phone.
Yeah, share your screen.
You're not sharing your screen.
No, I don't want to share my screen. Sorry. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Yes? Somebody say something.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the September 21st favorite. I'm going to click that box. My prediction is that this line is going to get reset to yes. And this line is going to be reset to yes. What do you think? Want to take bets? I know what I'd bet. Okay, I'm going to close this because it's probably not going to be happy if I have that looked at by another. Are you ready for this? Steve, why am I doing this? You ready? Okay, here we go.
You're glutton for punishment.
Okay, now the proof of the pudding is to actually run the silly show and see if it makes any difference. So let's go back to the season show. I can't believe I let Emma talk me into this. Okay, here we go. So the first one should run fine. The solstice one. So what should happen is when I run the next one, the solstice path should be erased. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. Yes? Believe it or not, it worked. Right? It erased that other path. Yes?
Well, as far as we can tell.
It erased the path because we said to reset the scene.
Yeah, but it looked like you had.
But you can't see the screen.
We
You
can't
gotta tell me. You gotta tell me before, guys.
No.
What do you think? What do you think? I can keep track of this stuff?
Can you hear me?
It's like a 4-ring circus. Look, see? See, it actually drew it, but then it erased it. You want to see it again? Emma's saying, I don't believe it. You erased it. I don't believe it.
Yeah, you gotta show it to me.
All right, it's only right. Just watch. Okay. You wouldn't believe I've been running this dumb planetarium for 14 years and I still can't keep things straight. Okay, here we go. So there's the summer solstice. Here's the proof of the pudding. Look, it disappeared. It disappeared. Okay, so what's the next thing we do?
Okay, so now you want to save that file. You want to leave that check. You want to make sure you have that unchecked. Bring up the next solstice, and then.
I want to go back and fix this, Chris. That's what I want to do.
Oh, okay.
Right? So
Okay.
now I'm going back. Yeah, you can see my pre-flight screen.
Yeah.
Notice that it's checked. That means reset the scene. Yes.
Right. So you have to uncheck that.
I'm going to uncheck it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now let's go
Now
back.
we can rerun it.
Yeah, let's rerun the puppy. I know, share the screen. I know, I'm working on it.
Good man. It's all right.
Okay, you ready? Let's start it over. This is actually a good exercise. Okay, here we go. I forgot to do a screen kill, a slide kill, road kill.
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's still. That's why I still have
Here we go. Summer solstice. Here we go. Now, if that checkbox works, that path should stay up when it's drawing another one.
Wait.
So believe it or not, that scene reset box actually works, and that is definitely the way to go if it's going to behave like that. Okay? Super, super great feature.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Well, I don't know about that. Okay. Any other questions about, are we okay? Emma, are you good now?
Yes, I'm good. Thank you.
Because that's.
Hey, Dave,
Yes, who's talking now?
this is Leslie. Really basic question. To get the little sun poops, do you go, it's under options, correct?
What am I trying to do?
You know, the little star trails, I call them sun poops.
The sun droppings.
Sun poop,
Sun droppies.
star trails.
Yes.
Yes? Yeah, what about star trails?
Sun pooping.
Leslie, what about the star trails? Yes.
Do you get those to actually show as in options, correct? Okay.
You have to have your favorites set up properly.
Correct. Okay.
And within, Leslie, within the favorite, there is a line that says star trails true or false or something like that. It is an unsupported feature.
Okay.
Do you want me to show you that?
I don't want to slow everyone down. It's okay. I'm sure I could figure it out.
If you go, that's very sweet of you. If you open up the Star Trails favorite in Polaris Stationery and search for Star Trails, you'll see the line. It says, I think it says either yes or true, I don't know. There's no other way to do star trails but to put that line in your favorite. You cannot do star trails any other way. There's no way to execute star trails from the pre-flight GUI. It is an unsupported feature.
Dr. B, I think she's talking about the sun trail
So
across the
more of a-
sky.
that's a whole different story.
Yeah, the sun droppings, not
Sun
the,
droppings, I thought sun droppings is options, dear.
Option, okay, thank you.
That's options, the options menu. You want me to show you that?
I'm on it. You just go to solar system.
Yeah, and then planets, moons, and you have all these options of dropping circles of different sizes or making a continuous line or going home and crying. That's one of the
I
choices.
see it. I see it. Thank you.
Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you meant star trails. Because you
No,
said,
no, no,
star-
yeah.
you said star poop and that confused me.
Sorry.
It's all right.
It's too
Easy.
late to confuse.
It's easy to confuse me. Okay, can we move on to adding celestial objects? Okay. So I have another handout on that. If you want to look at that while we're doing this, you can. If you just want to watch me make a fool of myself, you can do that. All right, let's see where we are here. Let me show you my render box screen. No, actually, I'm going to show you the pre-flight first. When I was starting the curriculum, I had all these ideas of putting in bodies in the solar system that either do the opposite of what real bodies do or do what my students think they do, even though they don't. And the first body I made was I don't rotate. So you can see here in the planets pane. By the way, the reason they name these pane is because it's a synonym for another kind of, you'll figure it out. Anyway, see I don't rotate? That's an object that I added, as is moon circular. This is the circular orbit moon on the ecliptic. Okay, circular orbit moon not on the ecliptic. And then this is for the lunar libration show that I made these 3 different moons. If you've done the lunar libration show, which is one of my favorites, it really gets the students to understand and think in a logical fashion as to why the moon librates at all. And that's not libation, it's libration. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. But I don't rotate. I put this body in there because my students still think that the moon rotates, because how else could you only see one side? If it's revolving around the Earth and you see one side, does that mean it's rotating or not rotating or something? So I made I don't rotate. And of course, I don't rotate doesn't rotate. And I think I showed you that in the Boy Scout show, yes? So I'm not going to do that again. But there's lots of reasons to add objects. When we did our first Christmas show, I wanted to show Halley's Comet I wanted to show Halley's Comet. See if he's in here. I guess he's going to be under comments. Good enough comments? I don't even know where he is. Anyway, if you try to make, in 1910, the reason people remember Halley's Comet in 1910 is because we passed through its tail. And the Neowise Comet is really awesome. Halley's Comet in 1910 makes that look like a joke. It covered half the sky. I mean, people would just, it's the end of the world kind of stuff because we passed through its tail. So I wanted to show people that on my Christmas show, even though the comet, couldn't have been the Star of Bethlehem because that would have been a bad sign. So when I went and I put in 1910, guess what? The orbital elements for Comet Halley, if you trace them back to 1910, the tail doesn't come anywhere near the Earth, not even close. So why is that? Because the orbital elements of comets change every time they come in past the sun, usually because Jupiter nudges them some way. And so what I did, and you can look at this in my handout, I actually put in the orbital elements for Halley's Comet in 1910. which I got from an article in 1910. And sure enough, the Earth goes through the tail if you put the correct orbit elements in for that epoch. So there's lots of reasons to be adding bodies into Starry Night. So I'm going to show you how to do that for a particular example, and that's for the Titus-Bode rule, which is a mini lesson in volume 3, which you don't have on your previous suites because that's a feature.
Are you sharing your screen right now, Dave? Or do you-
No, I am not sharing my screen. Can't you
Okay.
see me?
Yeah,
No,
we see you. I
am
just didn't know.
I am going to share my screen for a minute, okay?
Okay, yeah, no problem. I didn't know if you were.
No, Chris,
That
that's
works.
good. Keep on me, Chris. I might actually, you know.
That's okay. Here to
All
help.
right. Let's see if I can get you guys out of here and pull up the Titus-Bode rule. Let me show you what my issue was with this. Everybody's heard of the Titus-Bode rule.
Mhm.
So hopefully this is what you're seeing, yes?
Yes.
Okay. This
So
is actually one of my favorite mini lessons. It's kind of really cool. You got to know a little history. All the history is in at a glance. But there's Titus and Bode. They're both dead now, but they were really cool guys in the 19th century. And they in the late 18th century, and they published papers on this rule that they discovered, which sort of imitates the position of the planet's orbits. Let me show you what this is. So we zoom in here. The equation for this, and it's a little small on my screen. This is the dome. It says the distance is equal to 0.4 plus 0.3 times 2 to the n, where n is either an integer or minus infinity. So it's a much simpler equation than you think. So the first orbit predicted, if you make the exponent minus infinity, is just 0.4. So what I wanted to do is draw a circle in here of an object at the 0.4 AUs. And so that's the Titus-Bode orbit. Can you see it? And of course, it's almost exactly Mercury's orbit. It's offset because, of course, Mercury's orbit is an ellipse. If you put in 1 for M, you get 0.7 AUs. If you put in that orbit, it's almost exactly Venus's orbit. And of course, if you put in 1 for the exponent, you get 1 AU, which of course, that's by definition the Earth's orbit. If you put in M equals 2, you get 1.6, and that's almost exactly Mars's orbit. So people thought, hey, this is pretty cool. And it's more than that. So if we go out to Saturn's orbit, which is all the planets they knew, this was published in about 1777. They didn't want to publish it in 1776 because some other stuff was going on in the world. But in 1777, that was when they wanted to publish it. The next number, if you put 3 in, is 2.8 AUs. So if you put that orbit in, you'll notice there's nothing there. They were not happy about that. But they didn't give up, because when they put 4 in, it came out to be 5.2, which is almost exactly Jupiter's orbit. And if you put in M equals 5, that 10 AUs is almost exactly Saturn's orbit. So they're starting to think that with this really simple relationship, where basically what's happening is the size of the orbits are roughly doubling, there's something to this, that there might be some kind of scientific orbital resonance going on with the placement of orbits. So far, so good? Okay, now remember, this is 1777. That is important, because something was discovered in 1781. Does anybody know? Eric Briggs would know, but he's probably in a bar. You know what was discovered in 1781, 4 years later?
No, I'm here.
Uranus.
Uranus is correct. Let's just zoom out a little bit, because if you put in M equals 6 into this equation, you get 19.6. In 1777, when this was published, of course, there was nothing there. Just 4 years later, Herschel discovered Uranus, whose semi-major axis is almost exactly that. So all of a sudden, people are starting to think, you know what? There must be something to this, because it almost predicted the position of this planet. It's the first planet ever discovered by humans, other than cave people. That was 1781. Guess what happened on the first night of the first century, the new century, 1801?
Leverrier said, point your telescope there and you will see it well.
Almost. Oh, I forget the guy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ceres was discovered on January 1st, 1801.
That's right.
And its orbit is almost exactly 2.8 astronomical units. All right, well, that sealed it for the astronomers of the time, that this Bode's law, which was predicting stuff that wasn't even there, they're starting to think there's got to be something to this. It wasn't long after that Pallas was discovered, and then Juno was discovered in 1804. Oh, by the way, if you have space satellites turned on at the same time and you tell it to do Juno's path, Eric, what else comes up? I dare you to guess. The Juno satellite path comes up.
There's other things called Juno, yeah.
I know, so that's bad. That's a feature of Starry Night, that if you tell it to do Juno, it does the asteroid and the space path, which looks a little funny.
In a few years, there is a spacecraft called Psyche that is going to go and visit an asteroid called Psyche, and we will have to both call them the same.
Yeah, we'll have to do something about them, because that will psych people out. Okay, so they discovered 4 good-sized asteroids in a matter of just a few years, and then it didn't take long to find a few more. So what do you think they're going to do now? They're taking the Titus Bode rule very seriously. So let's go back out and let's do M equals 7. M equals 7 predicts a 38.8 AUs. So that line is out here. And what's the next planet they found? This is Adams and Leverrier.
This is Neptune.
But guess what? Neptune's semi-major axis is about 30 AUs, not 38.8. The Bode rule fizzles out. Unless you want to cheat and say it's Pluto, because Pluto's semi-major axis is very close to 38.8. Yeah, amazing. Not to mention its orbit intersects Neptune. Okay, now.
Doesn't count.
We're almost done. If you go out to the next one, so let's zoom out some more. Look, see how the stars disappear when you go out? Did you see that? That's a feature. That's real. If you go far enough away from the solar system, all the stars in the background disappear. That's actually what happens. Okay,
no wonder
now,
they can't find Planet 9.
That's right, because that stuff's not really there. You can only see it from within the solar system. Okay, now here's the issue. I want to draw the 77.2 AU orbit. So there it is. Is there something there?
I want to say maybe Eris.
Yes and no.
Yeah.
There's Eris. There's lots of other bodies, right, that aren't. But you might say, what about Sedna? Look, Sedna, look, Sedna, look. Part of Sedna's orbit is almost exactly at that distance. Yeah, this is called stretching a point. Look at Sedna's real orbit. Yeah, so the Titus Bode, some people call this the Titus Bode law. This is the Titus Bode rule, okay? If you try to write a paper on this rule and submit it to Icarus, do you know what they'll do? They will reject it outright without even looking at it. So many people have written articles on the Titus Bode rule trying to show that it's real, that they won't even look at it anymore. And they've actually done There are papers that have looked at exoplanets orbits, trying to find Titus Bode rules for exoplanets, and it's a will o' the wisps. In some places you can find a relationship, in others you can't. Now, why did I show you all this? I'm actually just trying to kill time. Now, so what I'd like to do, what I would like to do is to show you how to add an orbit, okay? A new body. I just wanted to put it in that context because what I'm going to do is something very dangerous. So let me show you the Titus Bode orbits. Let me collapse this. So the user-created puppies, you can see the Titus Bode guys here. Yes, Titus Bode?
No, we don't see your screen.
Oh, thank you.
Mhm.
Keep me honest, Chris.
You gotcha.
I'm in the planets pane, down under the user-created stuff after space missions. And so you can see all the Titus Bode things that were added. You'll notice there's no Titus Bode 38.8. I mean, that's the last one. There's no 77.2. And yet the orbit showed up. That's a mystery, isn't it? Not to me.
Because you put it there?
Because RenderBox has a different file. RenderBox has my old Titus 77.2 orbit in it. So what I want to do is I want to add this. You'll see what I mean in a minute. I want to add so that pre-flight knows there's a Titus Bode 38.8, 77.2, sorry. So here we go. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. So I'm going to go up to File, New, and pick New Comet Orbiting the Sun. We get this really nifty looking dialog box. Well, we did. Where'd he go? He disappeared. There he is. Okay, now I need to tell what type of object it is. I'm just going to call it a planetoid. I could call it a planet. I'm going to call it a planetoid just because I want this Titus Bode guy to be tiny. I don't want to see him. I don't want to hear from him. I just want to put up his orbit. So I want to make him tiny. And I have to give him a name. I thought of Fred, but I need to make it along with the other ones. I probably don't have capillax on it. That'll destroy the universe. So I'm going to call him Titus Bode 77.2, which is going to be his semi-major axis. So far, so good?
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be the name of the object, and that's the name that pre-flight's going to pull up. Then you go down to this stuff, and there are 3 tabs that you can set things. And the orbital elements, you have the 7 orbital elements of an orbit. All you care about if you're doing something like this is the distance. So there's a slider here, but I want a specific number. So I'm going to type in 77.2 AUs. And the cool thing is it actually draws the orbit in here in this picture. Okay, and that's what it's going to look like, actually the name of it there. Yeah, I want the eccentricity to be 0, the inclination to be 0, the ascending node, it doesn't matter. And the argument of pericenter and mean anomaly, those things don't matter for this object because I don't care about the object, I just care about the drawing the orbit, yes? If you're going to put a body in and you care about these things, then you need to set these to their appropriate values. If you were going to do a moon like our moon, you would go to our moon, copy its values, and then put them in here. If you go to the surface model as a default image, okay, you can map whatever you want on it. I don't care because I'm not going to go there and look at it, so I'll just leave that the way it is. With other settings, you can set its meridian position, you can set its rotation rate, you can tidal lock it. So there's all kinds of cool stuff here you can do. What I want to do is make this body teeny tiny so you can't see it. I want to make its absolute magnitude some ridiculously large number so I can't see it. Does that all make sense? Because really all I want to do is put in a reference orbit at 77.2 2 AU. So that should be everything. And I spelled it correctly. So now you go up here and you close. Now you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, isn't there a save or something? I don't want to close it. Yeah, that's the way this works. You close it and then it says, don't save, cancel, or save. Yes?
Yeah.
I want to save. Okay. So far, so good?
Yep.
Okay, now look. If you go down into the planets pane, guess what you aren't going to see?
You're not going to see the Titus.
won't- Yeah, you won't see it. Why?
Oh, do you have to do you have to refresh it,
gotta
or
yeah, you gotta restart pre-flight and render box. And one other thing too. Are we ready?
okay?
Okay. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to close down pre-flight and close out render box. And I have to shut off ATM4, otherwise my desktop doesn't come back. That's a feature of Preview Suite. Okay, now this is the tricky part. I need to go into my user preferences because that's where my made up stuff is put. Okay, so here we go. This could be glorious or it could be awful. Go to the root drive. This is all in the notes. Go to the root drive and go to users because I need to get to my users prefs. Go to users. Okay. You're the user, right? Whatever your name is, whatever you're in there as. App data, application data. This is where it's going to put it. Local. And then you go down and find simulation curriculum. It's a pretty easy path, right? Starry Night Prefs
Trivially obvious.
is a piece of cake. Now,
Easier.
okay, now, let's go to pre-flight, yes? Go to pre-flight, because that's what we were just working with, was pre-flight.
Hmm.
So go into pre-flight, user planets SSD, look at the creation date, today at 4:43 a minute ago. That's the guy, that was just made. That has Titus Bode 77.2 in it, okay? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're happy. Who doesn't know anything about this? Pre-flight knows, who doesn't know?
Render box.
Render box.
If you go back to the render box in your user prefs, if you look at his user planets, you'll see that's at 250 today, not 443. You see that?
Yeah.
They're not the same. Render box knows nothing about this new body. So what do you think I do?
Copy and paste.
Copy and paste.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm going to go into pre-flight. I'm going to copy this file. Go back to render box. And I'm just going to paste over it. Now I'm doing this because I trust it, believe it or not. You might want to save the original one. But this is the thing. To me, this is dumb. This ought to be fixed. Once you add a new object in pre-flight, it ought to automatically copy that user file into the render box folder. It seems to me that this is a silly thing for us to have to do. Okay, now let's reboot the puppy. Let's see if this works. So the test of this working is going to be that we should be able to see Titus Bode 77.2 in pre-flight, in the planet's pane. So let's see what happens. Pretty exciting, right?
I've got chills, Dave.
I can't reply. I'm holding my breath.
Kelly is so excited she's eating. What is that, Kelly?
It's an Oreo cookie my husband gave me.
Cool.
It's a full moon cookie.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. So let's check it out. We need a drum roll. Here we go. You ready? Look, 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 look. Look at that.
Yay!
Look, it's there. How about that? See, I knew you wouldn't believe it, but there it is. That's how you add objects, guys. You do the file thing, you add it, right? Make it whatever you want. But then you have to copy that user planets SSD file from the pre-flight user pref into the RenderBox user pref. Got it? Once you, yeah, I like Chris's, a little clunky, but it works. Exactly right.
Dave, just to this is going to be a really elementary question or observation, I guess, is when you're looking at that pane of all of the objects. So in other words, that's reading off of RenderBox. That's basically saying, okay,
It's actually
RenderBox, what do you
actually
have,
reading,
right?
It's actually reading pre-flight.
Oh, it is reading pre-flight,
Yes.
but somehow or another, RenderBox is like, it won't display
No.
it there until RenderBox has its prefs updated.
So Chris, this is the story. Okay.
Yeah.
This afternoon I tested this out because I don't like to do stuff without testing it. I think you all understand that. And what I did was I then eliminated, I went into pre-flight and I erased Titus Bode 77.2. Yes?
Mhm.
Right, because it wasn't in the pane.
Right.
But then when I went and ran Titus Bode program, the 77.2 orbit showed up, didn't it?
Yeah.
You know why? Because the user planets file was my old one that had the orbit in it already. So RenderBox knew about it, but pre-flight didn't,
Okay.
because the files weren't the same.
Yeah. I got you.
Okay, so I forgot to go in RenderBox, but they don't talk to each other in the sense that those two files, if you want to be able to draw stuff, they have to be the same. Otherwise, pre-flight either doesn't know about it or RenderBox doesn't know about it.
But if you are adding a new
Object.
object, orbit, what have you,
Yes.
you still have to make that copy over.
Yes. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
Okay.
to me. That's the only tricky part. You have to copy that file in the user's pref.
All right. Very
Okay.
cool.
And once you do that, then you're ready to go. Once you reboot, it'll be both here and RenderBox will know. If I hadn't, if this was the first time I had put 77.2 in, and I hadn't copied that file over to RenderBox, when I told it to draw 77.2, nothing would have happened.
I see. Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Any other
That makes
questions?
sense. Thank
Yep.
you.
Any other questions?
I got a question.
Eric, go ahead.
What if we want to add an interstellar comet?
So is it going to have an eccentricity greater than 1?
Yes.
Can we do that?
Yes and no. I mean, when I've tested it, I found that it was able to plot the position of the comet for a certain period when it was in the intersolar system.
Okay.
But as it got a little bit further away, suddenly,
What happened?
bad things.
Oh, that sounds like Preview Suite.
But I know that people are going to be asking about this because now we have had 2 interstellar comets, and there's a movie coming out with Gerard, what's his name, called Greenland. It's going to be about another comet apocalypse story.
Yeah, it's you can obviously put in an eccentricity greater than 1, so that means you can put in parabolic orbits. So theoretically, the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
But like you say, you could put in the parameters, see what happens. There's no reason that I can think of that it would blow the system up. It's just right? It's just a
Yeah, I know.
hyperbolic-
The position started. The position of the interstellar comet got more and more inaccurate as it got further away from the perihelion.
Well, but Eric, isn't that because the orbital parameters that you got are based on measurements, while it's in the solar system, or
Yes.
something like that? So that, you know what I mean? Those parameters are probably not that accurate for its actual real orbit. You know what I mean? That would be my first guess.
The first one, no, wait a minute. This was the second one was Comet Borisov, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And its eccentricity is 3.35.
Wow.
Well,
3.36 if you round up. And
Wow.
and that's something you can still enter into Starry Night.
Yeah,
So,
right.
It makes a funny noise.
Interesting.
you're saying you can enter it in a Starry
Yeah,
Night?
you can. You can put an there's no limit. You can type it in whatever you want.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought there was a type-in box. Yeah, next to the
yeah,
slider.
type in box, not just a slider. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very interesting, Eric. Thanks for bringing that up. Any other questions? Or are you just ready to run away?
I was looking over your notes, and it doesn't have the step of going through and copying over the user planets into render box.
So Emma,
Or am I missing it?
Emma, what you need to do is either edit it or write it in by hand. 'Cause
Okay.
That was written before this even existed. So
Gotcha.
thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Okay.
So
Thank
that needs to be changed because, you know, it's a little different from your side dome.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
That's what you have to do in Preview Suite. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for bringing my attention to that.